Well, it looks like we've got a good enough group here to start off. So I'll give a little background on Pandion to begin, and then we can dive into it. Um, so Pandion Music Foundation, we started in 2022. We're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit that provides community and skill building opportunities for music creators in Los Angeles and beyond to cultivate long-lasting lives in music. And through online and in-person workshops, wellness support, and scholarship-based mentorship programs, we foster a community where creators from diverse backgrounds and identities can have the support, tools, and resilience they need to make music in an ever-evolving industry. So one of our main programs is this workshop program that you're participating in today. And we run these workshops every Wednesday with different music industry leaders and mentors so that they can share their expertise with you all. We also have community conversation workshops now that are based more around discussion. So our community they're all unmuted for the full hour, and we can talk about different topics about music in the news or whatever's happening in your lives right now. So yeah, we're really honing in on community this year, which I think we're all really happy about since it's much needed at this time. And we're really excited to have William here with us today. It's Financial Literacy Month, if people didn't know, and so we wanted to bring somebody on who could talk about financial literacy in relation to an artist's life, because I know that that's still I know for me, I'm still like a lot of that world is very mysterious to me still. So it'd be nice to have you here, William, and talking about how we can be more aware and have more in control of our finances as artists. Um, and I'll just give William's background so you all know more about him. He's a financial services began his financial services career in 2013 at E-Trade Financial, and then subsequently held positions in client services and financial planning at several firms in Chicago and Washington, D.C., before landing at Mercer Advisors in 2023. As a financial planning analyst, he enjoys formulating different strategies to help clients from to help clients get from where they are to where they ultimately want to be in their financial lives. And he's a graduate of Southern Illinois University with a degree in business and is certified financial planner, professional. And then outside of work, William enjoys exploring the restaurant scene with his wife, working out and playing the piano. We were excited to hear that William is also a musician. So that is really awesome that you have both of those sides to you, William, and your experience, and you might be able to relate to a lot of what our community goes through with financial planning and their experience with their finances. So thank you for being here today.
Thank
And
you for having me.
awesome. Yeah, just again, everybody, please keep track of questions that you have, pop them in the chat, raise your virtual hand if you want to be called on the screen, and we can get started. Um, Thanks for being here.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that introduction. First of all, I hope when you saw the posting or anything, you weren't expecting that guy in the stuffy navy blue suit. Um, Even when I'm doing financial planning for multimillionaires, usually I'm in a hoodie and joggers. So even this is a little overdressed for me right now, but it is what it is. Nonetheless, give me just a sec. I'll share my screen here. And all right. Can you all see that PowerPoint?
Yeah, just popped up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. So once again, as Jordan said, I'm William Thompson, and I've been in finance for about 12 years. I've been a planner for nearly four, and I might be showing my age a little bit here, but this fall will actually make 30 years as a musician for me. So started out September of 95, got a trumpet, and somewhere along the way, I liked it, just didn't love it, and I wanted to play the keys. And it just so happened that around 2006, I discovered this thing called YouTube University and said, hey, why not self-teach myself there? So it was actually one of the best financial moves I've made as well. And on top of, just the overall musicianship and everything. But um, And I would say, I don't know, maybe this is a superpower. I don't know, but my wife, she would always point out how I can just switch from being the finance guy, looking at charts and numbers, to recording music or playing whatever song is popular on the radio just in a snap. So I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's a gift, but I can say that the intersection of the arts and finance is something that's near and dear to my heart. But anyways, this isn't really about me, it's about you and how you can possibly explore some way, or how we can explore some ways in which you can best manage your financial affairs as a creative. So, and I know that this PowerPoint does heavily mention musicians, which I believe most of us in here are, but I would say it's 100% applicable to other types of creatives as well. But without any further ado, let's get to it. So, as you can see, these are some of the topics that I wanted to touch on while we have some time today. Managing irregular income, record keeping, and taxation for musicians, as well as the intersection of health and the business of music. And lastly, we'll talk about planning and investing for the future, which, if you've been following the news, that might be a bit of a controversial topic, or if you're currently invested in the markets with everything going on. So that could get pretty interesting there. So let's talk about managing irregular income and having a plan. So, as we know, as creatives, the income isn't always steady, unless, of course, you're in a W-2 job, maybe working as a teacher, or maybe you have a studio engineer job. But for the most part, it's, hey, if you don't work, you're not getting paid as a creative. But there are ways in which we can effectively manage this. And one of those ways I would say would be to create a list of your income sources and expenses. And I say that because that's a great starting place for having some clarity around your finances. So let's say, for instance, you have a steady gig playing somewhere. Maybe you're playing every Sunday at a church, like I did for, I would say, 11, 12 years or so. Or maybe you have social media income or brand partnerships, affiliate marketing income, whatever that is. I would say list those things out. And even more importantly, list out everywhere your money is going rather than just what's coming in. Because it doesn't matter if you're a musician, whether you're working in a social media space, a financial planner, what have you. Anybody can be wondering where exactly their money went. And trust me, I have definitely been there plenty of times to where I'm just looking like, okay, I got paid this much, but how come there's only X amount that's in the bank? Where did this all go? Now, there are specific way or different ways in which you can keep track of that. If you're a bit old school, hey, I'm not going to hold it against you if you like to keep a notebook of that. However, there are plenty of financial management apps, which I will get into a bit later. But on top of keeping things organized and clear, another way I would say would be to keep separate accounts, because that's going to help you clearly see and your income and expenses and track those expenses more efficiently. And not only that, it's going to help keep those stress levels down. Because I mean, can we all agree that finances, especially in this day and age, they're stressful enough, no matter what you do for a living. Um, Literally, I would say probably about an hour and a half ago, I was presenting a financial plan to a couple who's worth $4 million, and they were freaking out. And I was talking them down, saying like, "Hey, you're going to be okay. You're going to end up dying with $7 million in your net worth, so it's cool. Spend some money, have some fun, live it up." But but that just goes to show you that no matter where you are on your financial journey, whether you're worth, you know, $1,000, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, financial stress comes for us all. So no one's really immune from it. But nonetheless, I mean, some of you may find that you can probably channel that financial stress and chaos into creating some amazing work. But let's be honest, everyone isn't really built that way. But I will say they did give us some classic hip hop in the 80s and 90s. So, I mean, I can see both sides to that. But, anyways, we are coming up on, as we know, the tax filing deadline. So that's in about 6 days. And then having separate accounts for, let's say, your personal spending versus what you're spending within the music business, it can help make tax preparation so much easier. So you may have found that out, hopefully not the hard way if you've already filed, but that's just some of my advice to give to you. But on top of keeping those accounts separate, another big one that I recommend to creatives is to have, and this is really to anyone, no matter what your profession is, but definitely to creatives, having an emergency fund, because that is going to make things so much easier for you. Because I will tell you this, if you have $400 sitting around in a bank account, maybe it's in cash, underneath the mattress, whatever it is, wherever that those funds may be, congratulate yourself, give yourself a pat on the back because you are in the minority. Because the truth is, most of the people in this country do not have $400 laying around to address an emergency. And I can tell you at some point, something is going to break down, something is going to need repairs, something is going to need replacement. And especially as creatives, musicians, we always have to keep up on the latest equipment. And I can tell you from personal experience, this was about maybe 15, 16 years ago. I had just bought a brand new keyboard. I mean, I could still smell the Guitar Center on it. And I had a clumsy moment, and then boom, I knocked it clean off the stand, killed the power supply, had to get the whole thing resoldered. That's money I had to come out of pocket for. So being prepared for things like that, and luckily I was able to address that rather than having to rely upon a credit card or some other borrowing method to address that emergency. Because I mean, it was my only keyboard. If I don't have a keyboard, I can't go gig, can't play, I can't get paid. So definitely have an emergency fund. And I can tell you, and it's not just maybe having a clumsy moment, but also, I mean, if we remember just 5 years ago when COVID hit, everything stopped. At that time, personally, I was playing at a church. I was receiving a weekly paycheck from that. And by mid-March 2020, that was gone. So we want to have those things in place to where we can address like, hey, what if this happens? What if I'm in a place that's affected by a natural disaster? Like I saw we have people in here from California. I know there were some wildfires early this year. Earthquakes can happen. Where I live, tornadoes are prevalent. So hopefully these you're not affected by these things, but hey, they can happen. Now, in terms of an emergency fund, there's a general rule of thumb, which is if like let's say you're a married or dual income household, you'd want to have at least 3 months of living expenses saved up. And if you're single, you want to have at least 6 months saved up. Now, I would consider possibly stashing away more, just depending upon how irregular or how unsteady your income is. And then you might find that, hey, during months with higher than normal income or higher than average income, you might consider saving more. And as far as where you can save those funds, um, I always recommend a high yield savings account. So those are going to be just basic background. Those are going to be accounts where you're going to get higher yields, let's say right now about 3 to 4%. And you have places like American Express, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, Ally Bank, and I have one at Capital One. So those are a few places that you can consider in terms of high yield savings accounts and saving that emergency fund. I would not recommend investing it because, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, our president could say, "Hey, I'm placing a tariff on these countries," and then the market could, and now your emergency fund is up in smoke. So And that's not spewing any anti-Trump rhetoric or anything. I'm just trying to be as nonpartisan as possible. But hey, we've just seen these things happen. So yeah. But another thing I want to just mention in terms of managing irregular, unsteady income is managing lifestyle creep. And if you don't know exactly what lifestyle creep is, think of it like this. I'm making more money, so I can spend more money. I can live it up. I can take advantage of some things that I used to not be able to in the past. Now, I was personally reminded of this just a couple of weeks ago because I ran into an old friend who's also a fellow musician. And I mean, this guy, he's done production work for some very well-known gospel artists, and some of his YouTube content has millions of views. So during COVID, he told me he had gotten used to the large checks coming in, but once the pandemic died, people went back outside, his viewership decreased, and he also found that more musicians were entering his space. So naturally, what happened? The money slowed down, but he said his lifestyle didn't. So ultimately, he did have to make some serious readjustments, even a mindset shift. And it even got to a point where he had to downsize his home. So lifestyle creep can be a bad thing, but I will also argue that it can be a good thing as well because with more income coming in, let's say, hey, as a musician, you can buy more higher end equipment. And not only that, there are some perceived luxuries that you can take advantage of that will allow you to buy back your time. Like, let's say you're someone you like to put out a lot of content, or you're always in the studio, or whatever it may be. Maybe you're always gigging. Um, you might say, hey, I don't have time to cook. Well, hey, you're making more income. Maybe you can get that subscription to HelloFresh or um, whatever meal delivery kit service you like that's out there. And this is not a advertisement for HelloFresh either. So just want to put that out there. And then lastly, in terms of keeping track of everything, I would look at some budgeting apps because right now it's easier than ever to keep track of what's coming in and what's going out. Now, I've named a few here on this PowerPoint. So the first one is you need a budget. That's what YNAB stands for. And it's $109 a year or $14.99 a month if you chose to subscribe to it. With that one, basically every dollar that comes in, you're giving it a job. So this dollar could go towards Wi-Fi. This dollar can go towards this bill or what have you, or paying down a debt or buying equipment that you may need. And then you have Monarch Money, which is another highly rated service, about $100 a year. And then lastly, this is the one I use personally, it's called Rocket Money. Now, if you're a person that has a lot of subscriptions and maybe it's easy for you to lose track of them, whether it's TV streaming or you name it, it could be software subscriptions, um, that's a good one to keep in mind as well. And that one, I think they let you pay what you think is fair between about $6 to $15 a month. Right now, I've been paying $7 for maybe the past 8 years. I don't even really think about it at this point. But I've personally found that as a musician, it's often the sneaky expenses that can get you because for one, I will say I'm notorious for stopping at gas stations and getting the overpriced snacks and drinks on the way to or from the gigs, paying $4 for a can of Red Bull or something. And then not only that, after the gig, I mean, you have to eat. So naturally, what are you going to do? You're probably going to stop at a restaurant. Maybe you're eating out with the band or something like that. Those things add up. So maybe instead you consider preparing a meal before you go out to perform if you have the time. But also just be aware of your music related expenses too. So that could be, software subscriptions. Maybe it's studio software, studio fees, mixing and mastering, equipment, gas, you name it. So, and I'll stop. Any questions before I go on to the next section that we want to highlight?
There were a couple questions, but I think they might you haven't gotten to those areas yet, so I'll let you keep going and we can come back to them.
Okay,
Cool.
sounds great. So I want to sidebar and just switch gears here and talk about maintaining solid records as a musician or creative. So I'll be honest, I don't think a lot of us in this space are necessarily great at this. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But I will say that it does come in handy around this time of year since it is tax time. Now, I do want to make a quick sidebar and just talk about limited liability companies or LLCs. So maybe you find yourself in a space as a musician or creative where income is coming in pretty strongly and you're needing to hire some staff or maybe hire contractors, you may consider incorporating as an LLC. And I say that because, and first of all, I mean, hopefully we know, um, some of the inner workings with an LLC. I'll go through that, but basically, it's just a business structure that provides your personal assets with protections from, let's say, business debt or lawsuits, for instance, rather than me just working as William Thompson, I could incorporate as William Thompson Enterprises, LLC, and let's say I'm playing at a bar. I plug up my equipment and I take out the whole electrical unit in that building. Well, instead of that bar suing me, they'll have to sue my LLC. My assets are protected from that. So that's about the shortest, quick and dirty explanation I can give on an LLC. Um, but nonetheless, you can operate as a single member LLC. And here's why you might want to consider that. For one, it does give you more of a professional image and lends you some more credibility rather than just operating as yourself, first name, last name. We did just talk about the protection of your personal assets, but also the flow through taxation, which to explain that basically, what that says is even though William Thompson Enterprises LLC is receiving the income, it's all going to get reported on my personal tax return. Same goes for any expenses that William Thompson Enterprises incurs. So that could be the gas to and from the gig. It could be some of my studio expenses. It could be the new keyboard that I need to buy soon. Those could get deducted from my taxable income that's all reported on my personal tax return, even though those are all those income and those expenses are all incurred by the business. So also you want to keep those great records because um, you'll have to make estimated tax payments should you incorporate as an LLC. The IRS operates as a pay-as-you-go system. So as you know, if you're a W-2 worker, you have a job, hey, every time you get paid, taxes are being deducted. Well, when you're self-employed, you're responsible for making those payments every quarter throughout the year. So I usually suggest setting aside maybe 25 to 30% of your income to satisfy those estimated tax payments. And then once you file, that all gets settled up. So you may find yourself still getting a tax refund when that time comes. But also, you want to, in terms of record keeping, you want to avoid tax surprises. So once again, just using myself as a cautionary tale, I can remember back in 2019, like I said, I was playing for a church back in Chicago, and I was not keeping track of exactly how much that pay was adding to my taxable income. So when it came time in early 2020 to file my taxes, it was like an OMG moment, just looking at how much how much extra I had to pay to the IRS because of that. So keep track of those things. Um, know how much, your income is, know how much you need to, like I said, make payments to the IRS. Because, like I said, had I done that years ago, probably could have saved myself some pain there when tax filing season came. So, and then lastly, I'll leave you with this in terms of taxes and record keeping. And this is not a shill for myself, but just in general, you might want to consider working with a financial planner or with an accountant as your situation grows and becomes more complicated, or you might find that you have more income and expenses that you have to manage. Right. All right. So switching gears, I want to talk about health and wealth for creatives and musicians. Um, it is for real. And as I said earlier, um, we're very much and if you don't work, you don't eat type of profession. And I don't know a single musician that has sick time or vacation time or any disability pay. Now, of course, none of us have a crystal ball, but one thing we can do is to best be prepared for whatever may come, because we could be one accident or health diagnosis away from being able to work. And personally, I have known several people in the last few years in which that has happened to where, hey, they had a health issue and that stopped everything in terms of them being able to work. And that's not just in our space, but in others as well. Now, I will tell you that the studies have shown that 1 in 4 adults in this country will experience some type of disability before reaching that age of retirement. So I always stress importance, especially for those who are younger, to look into disability insurance. Now, I'm not an insurance salesman. I know that a lot of financial planners and advisors are often seen as being synonymous with insurance salesmen. They're out there. However, I don't. All I do is talk about how it's important and what it can do for someone's personal situation. So, why consider disability insurance if you are a musician or creative? So, let's say you're in an accident or you get that diagnosis and you're unable to work for a while. Or maybe you're the breadwinner for your family. Your family's dependent upon you playing that instrument or singing those songs to bring in that income. What happens if your voice is affected? Um, you might go through those emergency funds pretty quickly, but if you have a disability insurance policy that's in play, you can draw those benefits non-taxable or tax-free, and you can still be receiving income. And let's say that you're able to find a different job. Let's say you're a musician actively playing and you get injured, you can't play. Let's just say me, I can't use my hands. Well, I could still get a job as a teacher and still collect disability benefits through an own occupation policy. And not only that, um, there are definitely companies out there in which you can shop around for disability insurance. I always say if you're the younger and healthier you are, the cheaper those premiums are going to be. But you can go out there to pretty much any life insurance company, or um, I've used this site called Policy Genius where I've bought life insurance for myself. You can also shop around for disability insurance and see what that might be for you on a site like that. But just a sidebar for a second, since we were talking about insurance, I do also want to make a case for having good renter's insurance. Let's say you're living in an apartment or you have a storage unit for your equipment. Make sure that your property coverage is adequate to cover any damages or losses, because I do know some musicians who they've had their homes broken into. I've known some who've had keyboards and guitars and speakers stolen. If you don't have good insurance or any insurance, you're coming out of pocket. You're at a loss. So I cannot stress enough how important those insurances are as well. Once again, I don't sell them. I just educate on how it can be beneficial for your situation. And if you're a homeowner, same goes for you. Having good homeowners insurance and personal property coverage, having enough to be adequate to cover any damages or losses to that equipment you want to have in place. Now, if you want to take it a step further, especially depending upon how serious you are within your craft, you can find additional insurance policies specifically for your equipment. So there are some companies like Clarion, Heritage, and I believe Music Pro. You can insure your equipment at a fairly decent cost through companies like that. So I would just say check them out maybe and get some quotes and go from there. All right. So I digress, but getting back to health. So I'm not a health nut or anything, but I am an advocate for musicians getting or staying healthy. And I apologize if you hear the phone ring in the background. Um, but that's why I say to control the controllables, because there are plenty of health factors we can control. Now, saying that, I know far too many musicians that have had GoFundMe set up because they had either inadequate or no health insurance at all. And they found themselves hospitalized. I actually know a couple personally during COVID this happened to. And it was like, hey, they had to take up donations, collections for them, and they found themselves with some crazy high hospital bills. So um, you want to make sure you have protections in place for that. Now, let's say you're not working for a company in which you can get health insurance. You can always look out there in the health insurance marketplace through the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Now, although open enrollment doesn't happen until November, you can still go to healthcare.gov, set up an account, and you can preview the different insurance plans and get an estimated price quote for yourself. Just plug in all the information, your name, date of birth, social security number, all that info. And it's pretty easy to walk through. I've even done it for myself, my family. Um, so definitely check that out and you can get coverages for different things, preventive care, hospitalizations, mental health services. I'm a big advocate for that, as well as any prescription drugs that you may have need of. All right. And the last thing I want to touch on is planning and investing for the future. So, like I was saying earlier, with all the tariff talks and just everything going on in our government and economic policy, fiscal policy, we've been having some wild movements in the stock market. But I always say, unless you are right at that point of retirement, you're no longer going to be working. If you're a musician, financial advisor, I don't care if you sweep floors, whatever it is, always be buying because no matter what has happened, recessions, depressions, pandemics, wars, if the market has dropped, the market has always, every single time, come back up and it has gone higher. So even though it might be some scary times right now, I still say keep buying. Don't stop investing. So Um, but yeah, nonetheless, I mean, you might be in a place where you are hitting your stride and your income is pretty solid. It may be steady. Um, I want to just kind of highlight a few ways where you can, or a few vehicles for you to invest those funds. I know earlier we did talk about, emergency funds, high yield savings accounts, um, avoiding the lifestyle creep, but investing for the future in some of these vehicles can be so vitally important for you. And I'm telling you, it will pay off in the long run. Your future self will thank you for this. So a few of these that you can consider are right here. So the first I want to talk about is called the solo 401k. So I'm sure we've all heard of a 401k. If you haven't, basically it's a retirement planning account for, let's say you work a job, you can have X amount taken out of your paycheck before taxes and have it directed to that 401k and then invest it however you please. And then once you retire, let's say you're about 60 years old, you can start withdrawing from that. That's just quick and dirty explanation. But with a solo 401k, if you're self-employed, you have no other employees other than a spouse, you can do the same thing. So you could take some of that pay you're receiving as a musician and you can direct it into that 401k and then you can invest it however you may. Now, if you're under 50, you can contribute up to $23,500 for this year. Now, if you are over 50, you get what's called a catch-up contribution, excuse me. So that allows you to put in up to 30,000 for the year. Now, as you see here, there's what's called a traditional and then you have Roth. Basically, traditional means you're putting in that money before taxes. Before your income is taxed, you're contributing money to that 401k versus with the Roth, it basically means that you've already paid taxes on that money and then you contribute it. And then once you take it out, you don't have to pay taxes because you already have. Now, there are some age requirements associated with a solo 401k. So if you take that money out prior to age 59 and a half, you expose yourself to a 10% penalty on top of the taxes that you have to pay on that withdrawal. But still, wonderful account to consider. The next is called a health savings account or HSA. Now, this requires what's called a high deductible health plan. So let's say you have health insurance in which your premium is pretty low, but you have to pay a high deductible, meaning you have to meet a deductible, let's say 5 or 6,000, could be more or less, just depending upon that plan, before the insurance actually starts to pay in the event of, let's say, doctor visits or a hospitalization. But if you have a high deductible health plan, you have the license to contribute to a health savings account. So you can contribute up to $4,300 for this year if you have self-only coverage, or if you cover your family, and that could just be you and a spouse, you can contribute up to $8,550 for this year. And typically that does increase year by year, but it's pretty much the only account where you can get triple tax benefits, meaning you contribute that money before it gets taxed, it grows tax free, and then provided that you withdraw it for um, qualified medical expenses, which that is widely open up to interpretation. The IRS does have a list on their website of what they deem to be qualified. And I mean, that could be to pay hospital bills, it could be for mental health therapy, it could be for medical supplies, you name it. Um, as long as you use it for those reasons, you will not be taxed on that withdrawal. Now, cautionary tale, there was a guy named William Thompson who was giving this presentation back in 2018. He found himself in a cash crunch and he paid his rent with HSA money. That is a big no-no. And that guy, William Thompson, had to pay a 20% penalty on that withdrawal and pay taxes on that as well. So I would not recommend touching that money for anything other than qualified medical expenses. But the great thing is, if you do have money left over in an HSA by the time you hit age 65, you have the freedom to use it for whatever you want, but you will have to pay taxes if it's not a qualified medical expense. Now, these next two are two in which I absolutely love. First one is my Roth IRA. I love my Roth. Um, I know I touched on that a bit earlier, but with a Roth IRA, you contribute money that's already been taxed. So You've paid, let's say you got paid, you paid taxes already, you contribute X amount, which if you're under 50, that's up to $7,000 for this year. Over 50, 7,500 for this year. That money grows tax free. Now, anything that you contribute to that, you can withdraw without any tax or any penalty. But if that money grows, let's say you contribute 2,000 and you invest it, it grows to 5,000. And let's say you take out that 5,000, you're going before age 59 and a half, I should say, you're going to have to pay taxes on and a penalty on that $3,000 of profit. But if you're at age 59 and a half, the account has been open for 5 years, you can withdraw however much you need to without any taxes or penalties because you already paid the taxes on that money. And with that, just like the others, you can invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, you name it. And then the last one I want to talk about is the taxable brokerage account, which, as I said here, it's your basic investment account, but it is so powerful because there are absolutely no limits on how much you can withdraw or how much you can contribute to it. And you could take out the money whenever you please. Now, the only thing is you may have to pay what's called capital gains taxes. So, like I said earlier, let's say you buy stock in Apple and you buy $5,000 worth of stock and it grows to 10,000 and you sell for a $5,000 profit. You're going to have to pay capital gains taxes on that $5,000 of profit. But the cool thing is, depending upon your income, you may qualify to pay nothing in capital gains taxes. So with capital gains, there's only three tax rates: 0, 15, and 20%. And to be paying 20% in capital gains, that just means your income has to be over $550,000. And let's face it, most of us in America are not making over 550K. So the vast majority of us will probably be in that 15% range, but I have seen those who've paid zero. So but nonetheless, any of these accounts or a combination, which I have three out of the four personally. I'm not self-employed, so I can't contribute to a solo 401k, although I do have one from my job. So I guess technically I do have all four, but just putting in something into these. Like I always get asked, how much should I invest? And I always say every single time, anything greater than zero, because whether it's $1, $1,000, over time, that money is going to grow. So always be a buyer. That's what I tell anyone. Now, unfortunately, I can't tell you exactly what to buy. I can't give any stock advice. So if that was a question anyone had, I do apologize for disappointing you. But um, still, that's a conversation that can be had with an investment or a financial advisor. But anyways, that's pretty much everything I had. Once again, I do appreciate you all for hearing me out and listening. And I just like to open up the floor for any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much that you're such a great speaker. And that was all like, I think sometimes this stuff kind of flies over my head, but it all made a lot of sense the way you were explaining it. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Um, I'm gonna get into our questions that were dropped in the chat already. And then if there's any more, feel free to put those in the chat, everyone. Um, So, okay, so yeah, somebody had a question about specific fun types of type of funding related to musicians, funding for music production or like website promotion, and if you know of any specific like funding opportunities or sources that people could go to for specific like music funding, music career funding.
Gotcha. Unfortunately, I don't know of any offhand. Um, that would be a great question. I've actually looked into that myself. Um,
Yeah.
Most people I know I've heard of crowdfunding, of course. I know some people who've done that for their
Yeah.
projects, but as far as any specific funding, or any companies, I really don't know of any offhand, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's oh, can everyone hear me okay? I think my Wi-Fi just lagged. Um, that's actually I'm glad that they asked that question because I think it was Ken. I'll take a look into that a bit more and see if we could bring someone on that knows about like grants, potentially things like that that could help with artists funding specifically. Um, and let's see. Yeah, so Michelle was asking if this is a good time or a bad time to invest in the market with it going up and down, which you'd already touched on, saying that always a time to invest in the long run. There might be some benefits there, even if there's ups and downs going on right now.
Right? There's
Um,
always going to be ups and downs.
yeah,
And I mean, when the market is dropping, it's actually a great buying opportunity because it's cheaper. So you could look at it as you're buying at a discount versus when if it's just green, 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 highly valued, of course, it's going to be more expensive for you. So, no, I think whenever there are drops, those present great buying opportunities. But also keep in mind, for the vast majority of us, we're investing for the long run. Um, I'll just use myself as an example. I mean, I'm 39. I'm probably going to be working another 30 years as a financial planner, and I'm probably going to be a musician till I kick the bucket. So um, I can't see myself just stopping um, investing for just because, this year the market might be bad or, you know, it could be terrible. I mean, it could be great, in a couple of months for all we know. So I wouldn't get too concerned with the short term, but just always be thinking long term.
great. Is everyone able to hear me still?
Hmm.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that my Wi-Fi isn't giving me.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just a bit lagged. Okay, cool. I might switch my Wi-Fi quickly after this. So then there's another question. To bring on a financial planner, how much money would one realistically need to invest to get started and make it worthwhile for the planner?
I would say just depending on that planner, because I mean there are so many firms out there, but you have a lot of planners out there who don't require or have any minimums to be able to work with them because investing is just one piece of the puzzle. Someone who's what we call a comprehensive financial planner, and that's what you want to be looking for. Someone who can talk to you about health and insurance and talk to you about retirement, taxes, not just the investing piece. And I'm finding a lot more planners are getting away from requiring you to have $500,000 or $1 million to invest. So I would say you may not have much in the way of investing, but it can still be worthwhile, just depending upon your situation and your income and expenses and everything to work with that financial planner. I hope that answers your question.
I think Jordan might be having some network issues. Um, so I'm just gonna leave off, take over while I think she's just switching her Wi-Fi. I think her connection
Okay.
might have
It
dropped.
happens.
Yeah. Um, Michelle, did you want to unmute to ask your other question? I know you had, here, let me ask you to unmute. I know you had another question.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi,
Hey,
William. Thank you so much for your expertise and the information. It's been great. So, so
thank
I'm
you.
wondering, yeah, thank you. So to bring on a financial planner, I mean,
Mhm.
you're talking 500,000. What happens if somebody has $10,000, $20,000? Should they just be using a mutual fund or could they bring on a planner at that point?
Well, yeah, I think that speaks to what I was saying earlier. I mean, there are a lot of planners who don't require you to have X number amount to invest. You have planners who don't even manage investments. They just give advice. So it just depends on how they have their pricing set up. I've seen some that they work in the space for creatives. They may charge, let's say, anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 a year. That's just their planning fee. Um, no requirements. They're not going to tell you, hey, you have to have half a million, $1 million to work with us. So um, I would definitely just check into those types of
What
planners
about
rather
for
than
you,
those.
since
I'm
you're
sorry.
speaking? What about for you, since you're speaking to us? How do you work?
So I don't take clients.
Okay.
So at my firm, we have those who are advisors and then we have planners. So I'm more like a financial planning nerd, and I do a lot of the brain work, brain trust for those who do take clients. But at Mercer, I would say now they do have asset minimums at Mercer. I will say, unfortunately. So
Okay.
our typical client has about $1 to $2 million at least, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, there are all types of different firms. And I mean, there are some that are specifically geared towards creatives. I don't know of any offhand, but even just a Google search will point you in the direction of some, and that way you can do some price comparisons.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the last question that I had put in the chat was my dad, he has two Vanguard funds that he loves, and he
Mhm.
says he's making about 10%. Is that a good amount? Is that a good thing to do? Just do something simple like that and walk away and let it sit?
Okay, what was that part? The 10% part? I'm sorry.
Oh, he said he's earning 10% a year
That is
on two.
amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing, right? So that is good. Yeah, that's what he said, and he said that he thinks, just put the money in there and let it sit there.
I will tell you that can be quite risky as well, though. I mean, because
Okay.
it's easy, especially let's just use the previous 2 years as an example. Actually, we'll go back three. So 2022 was a trash year for the stock market. Um, the S&P 500, which is 500 largest companies in this country, closed down about 20, I think about 20%. But then if you fast forward to 2023 and 2024, those were amazing years. I think I returned about 15% just last year. But then you take a year like this year where the market was down, I think about 13%. So, I mean, it could be easy to get, I use this term very loosely and carefully, intoxicated by
Mm.
those 10% returns, but those aren't guaranteed. So, that's why I always stress diversifying those investments. Like for me, I have some over in other countries because whereas US markets might not be performing well, the European markets or the Asian markets might be performing much better. And it just ebbs and flows from year to year. I have some in real estate. I have some in ESG, which is companies that don't get involved in like pollution or alcohol, things like that.
But wouldn't a fund like Vanguard be doing that? Wouldn't they be investing all over the place or no?
It just depends on what that particular fund is.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, every fund is invested for a specific purpose. Like you have one that just represents the total stock market. You have some that just represent, let's say, the S&P 500 or um, small cap companies, maybe. Those are those companies that are worth 3 billion or less, 2 or 3 billion or less that are still trading on the market. So it just depends on what that particular fund is. If you find out though, I'll give you an answer.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. I really appreciate it.
for sure.
Thanks, Michelle. Great questions, everyone. This is like such a an amazing opportunity to be able to get an hour of your time, William, for free for our community. Just so helpful. I know a lot of musicians don't have the means to be able to afford services like this, so it's really,
Yeah.
really amazing that you're able to help us out with that.
Oh,
Um,
my pleasure.
and yeah, Anna, you just popped a couple things in the chat. Actually, if you missed it, on April 23rd, we are going to have someone from the Entertainment Community Fund giving a workshop, and they have grants available and they know a lot about musician grants. So definitely come to that workshop if you're interested in that. I know there might have been a couple questions that we didn't have time to get to today. So if you haven't joined our Facebook Creators Circle group, go ahead and do that. And William's going to be answering questions on our Ask Me Anything thread until the end of the week. So you can ask any lingering questions you might have there. And then, yeah, we'll have the replay up on our website soon as well. So if you missed anything, you can check it out. And then there's also one before we go, we've started a new survey that we're going to be sharing at the end of all of our workshops. I'm going to drop it in the chat right now. This just helps us at Pandion kind of get a better idea of what kind of workshops you all are looking for, what you benefit from, and how our workshops are impacting our community. So please take a look at that. And there's 10 questions on there. Shouldn't take too much time to get through if you're able to do that at the end of the workshop today. And we also have one other question before hopping off. We have been trying to adjust our communications for all of you to make sure that you're all getting our communications about our workshops, because I know things can be kind of challenging with Instagram and social media these days. So we're wondering if we could just take a quick poll in the chat right now. If all of you would rather see our email communications about the following week's workshop on the Thursday after our current week workshop, so like tomorrow, getting information about next week's workshop, or if you'd rather have them on Mondays of that week, the beginning of the week. So maybe just pop in the chat Thursday or Monday, and I'll take a look at that after, if anyone has a preference, if you'd rather have that information the week before or the week of. Yeah, we have been doing Mondays at currently, so that's if that's working for you, that's great. If you'd rather have that information earlier, we could also take that into consideration and adjust. Cool. Looks like we're getting some in the chat. And yeah, thank you again, William. This was so awesome. I'm just like so happy
Thank
that
you.
we could offer this to the community and that you were able to help us get this information out. And hopefully people can take some of this advice and use it to their benefit.
I appreciate it. Thank you all again.
Thank you. All right, great. Hopefully we'll see you all next week. Sign up for our next week's workshop if you haven't already on the website. And yeah, we will see you all very soon. Thank you
Thank you
again.
very
All right.
much.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks.